Hello and welcome once again. This is the Liberty Cause. And I want to do a little short video today to talk about how what we sometimes can perceive as a very local problem can actually be a very broad and systemic problem. A lot of people are still questioning, we still see this a lot on social media, why Jane Shang, city manager of Deltona, has been allowed to keep her job in the face of 6 felonies for voter fraud. People don't understand why the city commission just simply will not get rid of her. Why they want a felon, someone who confessed and pled guilty essentially to get a special deal, why they would allow her to maintain access to the city's checkbook. So let's take a look at a story out of Kansas City, Kansas. So what we have here is we have the U.S. Attorney's Office. This is federal. These are federal prosecutors working out of the U.S. Attorney's Office in Kansas City. And they got caught engaging in prosecutorial misconduct. What they were doing was they were obtaining recordings that were coming out of a federal prison that was being run by a company called Core Civic. So you have defendants that are sitting in a federal prison awaiting trial. And now we're talking, the numbers I've heard so far are upwards of almost 300 different defendants. But this company, Core Civics, they are recording video and audio in some cases, other cases just audio, recording phone calls between defendants and their defense lawyers. Now, this is private and privileged information. Core Civics was then turning these recordings over to the U.S. Attorney's Office. So they got caught, and the U.S. District Court essentially, they turned this over to what would be, like a special prosecutor to look into. And this investigation went on for 2 years. 2 years. They knew that they had evidence. They knew that they had enough to convict these people in this U.S. Attorney's Office of criminal behavior. For 2 years, the office did not cooperate. When asked if they were listening to these calls, they would get, "I'm not authorized to answer the question." That's what they would get. We're talking about a U.S. District Court judge asking them, direct questions. "I'm not authorized to answer that." This went on for 2 years. There was an order from the judge to not destroy any of the hard drives, any of the recordings. What did they do? Turned around, destroyed the hard drives, destroyed the recordings, destroyed evidence. They destroyed evidence against themselves in what is now a federal investigation. What happens to them? They ended up being held in contempt of court for a pattern of misrepresentation, obfuscation, lack of cooperation during an investigation into a growing scandal. So they're held in contempt of court. And typically, now, if you or I were held in contempt of court by a judge, 9 times out of 10, we're going to be taken and we're going to be hauled off and thrown into a cell. Not a single one of these attorneys or any of the employees in this U.S. District Attorney's Office saw the inside of a jail cell. What they did get was a monetary fine. So they got fined. Now, who's paying that fine? They're a government entity. Who do you think is paying that fine? Well, we are, because that fine is being paid to somebody, to the courts, from tax dollars. Really what it boils down to is the king taking money out of one pocket and putting it into another pocket. So if this doesn't illustrate the fact that there are obviously 2 sets of rules. There is a set of rules for for the king's men, for those in government, and a set of rules for the rest of us. If this is not clear by now, I don't know what could make it any more clear to everybody out there. Everybody who seems to think that government is their savior, it's this necessary evil that, no matter what, if government says so, we simply have to bow down to it and take their word for it. If this does not illustrate the fact that there are two sets of rules, nothing will. This is a 188-page, these were the findings of and conclusions of the court. I'm not going to go through the entire 188 pages here. I can put a link where you can go and read this for yourself if you like. Very dry reading. It's just a lot of legal speak. It's not a fun read. But it does spell out the fact, all of the evidence that was actually found against these attorneys who were breaking the law. Not one of them saw a jail cell. The office, not an individual, the individuals that were engaged in this misconduct, engaged in this criminal activity, they did not have to pay $1 out of their own pockets. The office, their budget was fined. Their budget comes from tax dollars. So if they had to pay a fine out of their budget, that came from your money. That came from your federal taxes. I want to show real quick. This is the Declaration of Independence. And one of the strongest statements in the Declaration of Independence is this: that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its power in such form to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Do you feel safe knowing that a federal prosecutor's office can break the law and they get no punishment? They actually, the only punishment that they get is paid for by you. So they take this money from you without your consent and they move it around from account to account like it's monopoly money. Does that make you feel safe and happy? Or is it time that these governments are abolished and that we institute new government? All right. So the last thing that I want to do real quick is I want to play this from a recent city commission meeting, Deltona commission meeting. This was Mayor Heidi Hertzberg offering her explanation as to why Jane Shang should be retained. So for those of you who didn't watch it, who didn't see it, maybe you're hearing this for the first time. But I want you to think about that U.S. Attorney's office in Kansas and a judge, that the only penalty that was applied to these people engaged in criminal activity was a fine that is paid for out of you and I, our tax dollars.
Last thing I'd like to say, last 2 weeks ago, I just want to present that the reasons that I kept support of Ms. Shang. I did my city manager performance evaluation, and they should be available by public record, but I just want to highlight some of the things on why I support the city manager. And I have based my evaluation on the achievements within departments, economic development, infrastructure, community relations, and quality of life for all of Deltona's residents and businesses. Ms. Shang has been involved with the Deltona community more than any manager I have worked with in the 8.5 years that I've been here, by attending city events, participating in intergovernmental meetings, and addressing the needs of the business and economic development community, which have for years, as many of us know, had a negative perception of the city. Ms. Shang has shown her experience in the transportation with critical TPO involvement, resulting in close to $11 million in TPO project funding, and has worked to ensure the city searches for other means of funding, such as grants, state funding, and ECHO funds. She has made very competent appointments in hiring staff in leadership roles, taking into account both experience and diversity. Ms. Shang has followed the strategic plan developed by the Commission and continues to move Deltona forward in a more solid foundation from which future generations can build upon. Several examples: in finance, we have increased hurricane disaster reserves, came in on budget, and the department continues to receive awards and favorable audit results. Permitting has implemented the customer registration format and is bringing in online permitting. The department is more customer service friendly and is cross-training for more efficiency. Big projects are business friendly, and barriers to development continue to be removed. Planning and Development Services appointed a new director, and this department continues to enhance development with rezonings, updating codes and policies that hinder progress or have hindered progress in both commercial and residential growth, as well as existing properties, and has a coordinated working relationship with economic development to continue to move the city forward with major projects. And I'm just going to run through these. These are all, like I said, it's all public record. You can feel free to look at the rest of my review. But this explains in public records, or in city clerk's office, the streamlining of public records, the new software. The fire department continues to excel and has a better relationship with this management than with previous managements. We have the new 311 resident reporting system, updating parks and fields, and so forth. And the center has had both its successes and its challenges, and management is addressing both staffing and marketing issues to ensure future success. We all know that in enforcement services and Deltona Water has had their challenges, and we need to continue updating. This is in my review that it should come up tonight. It's addressing your issue as well. Needs to continue to update operating procedures with an emphasis on customer service and communication. And I go on to say a few other things about communication, but those are basically in a short version of my support of the city manager.
So there you have it, straight from the mouth of the mayor. One of the items was streamlining public records. Well, I think everybody in Deltona knows public records and the acquiring public records got far, far worse under Jane Shang. Pretty much everything she listed off there got worse, not better, under Jane Shang. So, again, let's go back to what Thomas Jefferson had to say. Is this a government that has now become destructive of these ends? These ends being the pursuit of life, liberty, and happiness, to secure the rights of among all men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. Well, the governed has been telling this mayor over and over again that Jane Shang needs to go. And the government, in this case, is not listening to the governed. What were we told to do when the government stopped listening to the governed? Thank you. Please like, share, subscribe, and we'll be back again soon.